Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Market Snapshot series. My name is Rufus Kamau, Markets Analyst at FX Pesa. So today, my voice is a bit different. I'm a bit not feeling too good, but either way, we'll go through the session and try to understand the top market events that are currently moving asset prices. Also, we'll try to understand the very first executive orders that were signed by Trump yesterday, right after inauguration to become the 47th president of the United States. So as usual, this session does not constitute investment advice. It's not a recommendation to trade. So you should always do your own due diligence. So let's get started with the economic calendar and try to understand what are the top events that you're expecting for the day. Of course, this morning we had quite a number of data sets coming in from Business in New Zealand Services Index, which was at 47.9, a slowdown from the previous reading of 49.5. Then we had the claimant count change for the UK, which is basically the number of people claiming for unemployment insurance. So this came in at 0.7K, which was a huge improvement from the previous reading, which was a drop of negative 25K, revised from 0.3K. And also we expected that the UK economy had 10.3K people claiming for unemployment insurance, but instead we got a much smaller number, which basically indicates a much healthier job market. So average earnings index, or basically the wage growth, was at 5.6% quarter over year. This came in as expected, and it was an increase from the previous reading of 5.2%. So the overall unemployment rate increased to 4.4%, up from 4.3%. So we'll be looking at the market reaction from this later in the presentation today. So today is the second day where the World Economic Forum annual meetings continue after starting yesterday. So we'll be following on that closely. We'll also be looking at the German ZEW Economic Sentiment Survey. This will be happening at 1 p.m. And of course, the Economic Sentiment Survey for the entire Eurozone, also at the same time at 1 p.m. So we'll also be having the ECOFIN meetings happening all day. And the top events for the day will be in the New York session, where we look at the Canadian CPI data. This will be happening at 4:30 p.m. And of course, for the trimmed CPI, which is the one that the Bank of Canada mainly focuses on, we are expecting a further drop in inflation from the previous reading of 2.7% down to 2.5%. So as we head further into the week, we'll be getting CPI data from New Zealand. This will be happening on Wednesday at 12:45 a.m., where we expect a quarter-over-quarter increase to be 0.5%, a slight slowdown from the previous reading of 0.6%. Bank of England quarterly bulletin will be happening still on Wednesday, that is tomorrow. Then on Thursday, we get more data from Canada and US. For Canada, it will be the core retail sales as well as retail sales. And for the US, we'll be getting the unemployment claims data, and then the crude oil inventories for the US economy at 7 p.m. So on Friday, as we approach the end of the week, this will be the busiest day of the week, where we'll be focusing on the BOJ policy rate. So there is an overall expectation that the Bank of Japan will be hiking rates by 25 basis points from a limit of 0.25% to a limit of 0.5%. And the market is already trying to price in before this information in beforehand. And if you check on your yen pairs, you'll notice that they have been strengthening as the markets try to price in the possibility of a rate hike happening on Friday. So there will be a monetary policy statement, outlook report from the Bank of Japan, as well as a press conference later. Then after that, we'll be getting the S&P Global Flash Manufacturing and Services PMIs. This will be coming in for the Eurozone. We'll also be getting the same data for the UK as well as for the US economy in the evening. So clearly quite a busy day on Friday. So I hope everyone is ready to approach the markets on that day. So that being said, I believe now we can move to the main topic of the day today. And as the heading or the title of the webinar suggests, we'll be looking at the Donald Trump's executive orders versus markets. The orders were already signed yesterday, and we'll be looking to get more details on other orders. So there was quite a number of orders that we will try to skim through. One of them is on immigration. So national emergency at the border. So in the Oval Office, Trump signed a directive to declare a national emergency at the southern border. That's a big one, Trump said as he added his signature. So he also targeted automatic citizenship for US-born children of immigrants in the country illegally. Trump also signed an order that is set to suspend the US refugee settlement program for 4 months, though the details were unclear. So as you can see, even from the very first order on immigration, we know that it doesn't affect much of the markets that we trade. So we'll be trying to skim some of these orders to see which ones have a large impact on the markets. So closing the border, Trump ordered the military to seal the borders and cited the flow of illicit drugs, human smuggling, and crime related to crossings. So terrorism designation for gangs and cartels, this is mainly affecting the gangs from El Salvador as well as Venezuela. Resume wall building, this is very important. You might be looking into construction companies and the ones that have a tender with the US government to supply major construction materials, especially steel and cement. So you might want to be looking at companies such as Cemex. They could have a huge impact on this one. So this is just a simple highlight of a company that might benefit from this, which is a Mexican multinational building materials company headquartered in San Pedro. It manufactures and distributes cement, ready-mix concrete, and aggregates in more than 50 countries. So back to the page, we're looking at the executive orders. So remain in Mexico policy is a day one executive order. A measure from his first term, it returned about 70,000 non-Mexican asylum seekers across the border to await hearings. So there is the migration policy, then there's the death penalty for certain immigrant criminals, especially those that have committed capital crimes. Deportations already beginning on day one. TikTok got an extension of 75 days until they figure out whether they will be completely closing their business in the US or basically selling the company to American investors. So Doge and Elon Musk are on. So he immediately signed a directive creating the Department of Government Efficiency, a new advisory body that aims to cut government costs. It is expected to be led by Elon Musk. So freeze on federal hiring. Trump signed an action halting any new federal hiring, except within the US military and several other categories, until the Trump administration has full control over the government. So federal employees are all required to come back to the office, no longer working from home. So he signed a directive ordering the restoration of freedom of speech and preventing government censorship. So the order directs the Attorney General to investigate the activities of officials at such agencies as the Department of Justice, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Federal Trade Commission during the previous administration. So there was even more executive orders on political prosecutions. A big one was Trump getting out of the World Health Organization. So Trump signed an executive order to begin the process of withdrawing the US from the World Health Organization. So, that's a big one, he said as he signed the document. This marks the second time Trump has ordered the US to be pulled out of the World Health Organization. So a critical thing that investors will be watching is to see whether people will be suing the World Health Organization and the companies that were involved in the COVID jabs. So we'll be watching closely to see if there is any transaction suits that has the potential to cause some mayhem in the market. America First, in this case, he decided to pause all foreign aid and outlined he wanted a review of foreign assistance programs. So there was directives on Cuba, Biden era regulations, a regulatory freeze, and vaccinated federal workers will be rehired by the government, including 8,000 military service members who are discharged due to the Pentagon's COVID vaccine mandate. Diversity and gender. He basically passed an executive order declaring that the US will only recognize two sexes, and that is male and female. So day programs have all been cancelled. So anything to do with diversity, equity, and inclusion in the US government has all been cancelled. So in the same executive order, Trump ended all government programs, policies, statements, and communications that promote or support gender ideology. He also signed an executive order to rename the Gulf of Mexico into Gulf of America. As per tackling inflation, this is a big one, especially for forex traders. So he signed a directive asking every US federal department and agency to address the cost of living for Americans. The directive, which is not an executive order, asks agencies to look at lowering the cost of housing, healthcare, and key household items, groceries, and fuel. It asks for a report in 30 days. It's not clear how the Trump administration intends to lower these costs, and it's not detailed in the directive. So we'll be following closely to see how Trump plans on addressing the high inflation problem. Of course, it will be one of the biggest challenges he will be facing as the 47th president of the US. So on climate and energy, he pulled out of the Paris Agreement. So of course, we know that all the investments that were being pumped into the green energy revolution by the former president are now going to be cancelled. And with that, we expect to see more support for combustion engine vehicles as well as drilling and mining of oil, especially offshore mining for the US. So that will be a big one. So national energy emergency. Trump declared a national energy emergency, promising to fill up strategic oil reserves. So he signed an executive order titled Unleashing Alaska's Extraordinary Resource Potential, which deals with oil and gas and other natural resources. So the new president vowed to baby drill for more American fossil fuels. So end Green New Deal. As part of an executive order on energy, Trump halted the so-called Green New Deal, a series of Biden administration measures that were aimed at boosting green jobs, regulating the fossil fuel industry, and limiting pollution. So Trump ordered agency to halt funds appropriated through two laws, the Inflation Reduction Act and another law on infrastructure and jobs. He also said the US would end leasing to wind farms and revoke what he has called an electric vehicle mandate. So now he's opening up the market. People will no longer be required to get electric vehicles in order for them to get tax reliefs. But in this case, it will be an open market for all. If you want to buy a combustion engine vehicle, if you want to go for an electric vehicle, there will be no different treatment. So in that case, we might be seeing some volatility on other car makers, and that could be seen in the market as soon as it opens today. So Capitol riot and the people who are jailed due to the riot after the previous elections got their pardons. Commuting sentences of Oath Keepers and Proud Boys all will be released. So he hasn't acted on tariffs yet. This will be big news. So we want to know how he'll be approaching the tariffs, which has been a major promise of his campaign. He hasn't talked about the secret documents course, he said he will be releasing classified documents related to the assassination of the former US President John F. Kennedy. CryptoPile, Trump has championed cryptocurrency in his election, so the value of Bitcoin increased by 30%. Some believe Trump will move quickly to create a federal Bitcoin stockpile, a strategic reserve similar to the US stockpile of gold and oil, and that he has said would serve as a permanent national asset to benefit all Americans. So he hasn't signed any executive documents on Bitcoin or crypto. So that remains something that the market is only speculating on, but it hasn't happened yet. So that being said, we already know that some of the top expectations is that the US will be drilling more. And if they'll be drilling more and looking to refill the SPR or the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, then in that case, the overall expectation is that oil prices will be moving downwards. So I'm checking on the comment section. Good morning, Robert Kavale, Peter Kienjo, Angari Patrick, Bumba Fred. Happy New Year and the class at large. Thank you, J Squad. Morning, Jason. Gideon Dongo, Alfred Mwangi. Hello and good morning, John Mithamo. Thank you for joining. So there's a good question from Apollo Derito. How will Trump's energy policy affect Tesla by ending electric vehicles mandate? Or was this meant to check China's leadership and BYD? So Trump is more of a capitalist and America first. And in his argument, he basically says that if you go or you walk in the streets in the US, you'll find people driving the Porsche, you'll find them driving the Volkswagens, the Peugeots, all these European cars. But then if you go to Europe, you'll not find their top trucks, the Ford Raptors, you'll not find them being common cars within Europe. So what he wants to happen is to have a fair trading ground where American companies get more market access and they can export their cars as well as other products to other parts of the world in a way that the trade balance is much more balanced, such that not just every country dumping their products in the US, but not opening the market for American companies. So as for the energy policy and how it affects Tesla, Tesla is still one of the top brands in the US and it doesn't need the government support for it to continue performing well. So the green energy policies that were being implemented by the previous regime, they were basically forcing people to go electric in a way that if you go electric, they would account that you are having much lower emissions, and that would give you some tax incentives, whether be it these incentives are being sent directly to the company, and then the company sells the product at a lower price to you, or whether you account for that directly. So in this case, he's making it a fair ground for the auto manufacturers. So whether you're doing a combustion engine vehicle, whether you're doing an electric vehicle, there will be no government intervention. It's in this case, you just work on your product, make it better, and the market will demand your product. So there's a good question here. Which platform do you get to use the news? For instance, the one we are using in this case, it's BBC. So it really depends on where you want to get your news from and what type of news you want. So if, for instance, the economic calendar, in this case, you are using the Forex Factory website, sometimes you'll find me using the Financial Juice website. And in some other times, you'll see me using the Trading Economics website. So there's just too many websites, so it depends on really what you want to focus on. So that being said, I believe it's time. Now we jump to the favorite part of the presentation, charts. Try to understand what's happening in the markets, and once we are done with that, then we can end the session. So I'm hoping everyone can see this. So oil had a glorious moment way before the inauguration, making quite a strong swing. So if you go to the daily time frame, you'll notice that oil was literally trading inside this kind of triangle formation. And then towards the beginning, end of December and beginning of January, there was quite a strong rally, and we saw oil moving from these lows around 71 and get to a high of 81, which was $10 per barrel higher, or basically 14% higher. But then since we got to this resistance, all we are seeing is the market changing direction. So since the high of mid last week, we are seeing oil prices making an impressive reversal. So I expect to see an overall market changing direction as a result of the policies that Trump is looking to implement. And these policies are basically designed to make oil cheaper, which has a direct impact on consumer prices. So if oil prices go down, then the overall expectation is that the consumer prices might also go down. So we'll be observing this area of support. Of course, the market is looking to retest this area again. So notice how it has been working on the trend as a major support area. And of course, the recent swing hit this area here. But now, if you look at yesterday's price action level, we have a new low. We've already crossed the gap here. So we could be seeing the market either bouncing or breaking, with a higher likelihood of the market breaking the support area and oil prices are heading much lower. So, of course, we have the crude oil inventories coming up later in the week. That could be a key driver in oil prices. And of course, there's also that potential opportunity that the market bounces from here. But for me personally, I think there's a good chance we'll be seeing much lower oil prices as Trump will try to intervene directly and keep oil prices lower in order for him to survive the next 4 years with low inflation. So as for gold, it continues ring up, moving higher. So from the forward chart, this is the major resistance areas we have been observing. And so far, it seems like we have a clean break and the market is poised to move even higher. So if you look at the daily time frame, this was the highest ever price we have ever seen gold trade at, around 27.92. And now we are seeing gold attempting to move higher and retest the same area. So far, we have already broken the high of last week. So we could be going for a new high. So the high of last week was right here. So notice how the markets opened yesterday, attempted to move higher. This morning broke the high of last week. Yes, the market is really struggling to move above that, but overall we expect to see some further upside. Of course, it hasn't happened yet, so we continue observing the price action around this area. And once we see evidence of buyers coming in strongly, then we'll be driving even higher. But for now, it seems like the market is reversing. So we could be seeing some form of pullback playing out today. But then it hasn't happened yet. We are still within this kind of, I would say, a consolidation where the market is forming what looks like a loudspeaker formation, getting more volatility in, but still moving more like sideways. So we'll be observing later in the day to see how it plays out. US equities are very positive about Trump. And so far, we have seen a major trend line on the forward chart being broken and retested. So after the breakout here happening last week, you saw the market move higher. And then this morning, a retest of the same trend line and a very strong bounce, which basically implies that the prices are now headed for the top of the pattern. And in this case, we are looking at a rally to a new all-time high, perhaps around 22,140 for the NASDAQ. So for the US 30 or the Dow Jones, also we are seeing a major resistance area here, market breakout, retest, and continuation. So from the 1 hour chart, this is how it looks like. We broke out here on Friday. Then this morning, a retest of the same area and a push higher, which implies that we are headed even higher on the on the Dow Jones. So in this case, we are looking at a potential target of $44,494 per share. The Russell 2000 is also making an impressive comeback. So we expect to see some further upside potential perhaps to 23.31 price action level. And of course, we have the S&P 500 not being left behind, having broken the upper trend line, retested, and now is continuing. So we are looking at a potential where the market hits the previous high. So the previous high is at 6,098. So we would be seeing the market going for these levels, especially considering that the market is very positive about Trump. So Bitcoin made an impressive rally yesterday, formed a new high, a new all-time high of 109,551. So if you look at the daily time frame, it has never traded that high before. So from the 4-hour chart, this is how it looks like, and from the 1-hour chart, you can see that we already found a bottom here yesterday in the evening. Today we retested that early in the morning, and now it seems like the market is consolidating and potentially looking for a breakout. So in this case, we are observing a market that is, yes, consolidating, but could break out at any given time. So let's continue observing this and to see if there will be a breakout, perhaps towards the upper side, forming the basis for another bull run compared to yesterday's high. So dollar index is making an impressive recovery this morning after the big sell-off yesterday, showing that the Trump bet is still on. So with a very strong dollar that is recovering from the sell-off yesterday, you can already see the dollar making a recovery against the Swiss franc. So we could be seeing further upside potential moving to 0.91371. It's also recovering against the New Zealand dollar. The origin of the big move started at 0.56063. So in this case, as the market recovers, we could be seeing the market dropping to 0.56063. So for AUD/USD, we're already seeing something similar. So it seems like the market is looking to create a new low. So the low of the day is just nearby, and we are expecting to see some further downside, retesting the area around 0.62076. So a strong dollar against the pound, also after hitting a new high here, I would say multi-week high. We are seeing the pound giving the grounds back, and the lowest price we saw yesterday was around here. So we could be seeing the pound losing even more ground to the dollar and the market getting back to 1.21617. So for the euro, it's the same thing. We are seeing market basically completely reversing, and now the potential for the euro trading at 1.03205 seems more likely for the day. So the only chart I would be very skeptical about is USD yen, where the yen has been strengthening by quite a bit. Main reason is because we're expecting that potential rate hike that is expected to strengthen the yen. And as you can see, the price action last week, we had more bearish momentum, and the market found some support here. So instead, I would go for something different, maybe pound yen or euro yen, looking for opportunities. For the Nikkei 225 index, we eventually got to our bottom, and then the market changed direction. Now we can see that the Nikkei 225 index is now headed much higher, having bottomed around here last week. So let's find that chart of the yen. Yeah, like CAD, you can see the sharp drop that happened this morning as the Canadian dollar continued losing more ground to the yen. So I expect this to be a key theme for the week. AUD yen. Also, the AUD is holding on well, but of course, there's the pound yen, where the pound has been one of the weakest currencies this year. So let's find it. Yeah, here we have it. So this is the chart of the pound yen. So from the 1 hour chart, this is how it looks like. And clearly, you can see that since the day started, the pound has only been yielding ground to the yen. And of course, there's a very nice support area around here. So we could be seeing the market headed much lower ahead of the rate decision by the Bank of Japan. So meaning that we could be seeing the market retesting this support area. So from the 4-hour chart, this is how it looks like, and from the daily time frame, this is how it looks like. So it's a market that literally moved from forming a high and then a higher high to a lower high. So if you look at this high, it's much lower than the previous one, meaning that the momentum is basically getting lost. And now we are seeing what looks like a potential reversal after we saw this low, followed by this one, and then this other one here. And now if you try to connect them from this bottom to this bottom to this bottom, you can already see what's happening. So the first time we were following this path, and now you can see that from here to the next one, we are getting lower, and even the most recent low, you can already see the market is even getting much lower. So this basically indicates a changing trend, and in this case, we're expecting to see some further downside momentum, where we could be seeing the pound yielding more ground to the yen, and this might as well be the chart for the day. So that's it for the day. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for your time. Just checking to see if there's anything I missed in the comment section before we end the session. So moderating of oil basically means lower prices. So that's the long-term expectation for the Trump administration. So gold is not in correlation with moderating of oil. Gold is much more of a demand and uncertainty factor. Investors are more uncertain about the markets. They tend to buy more gold. And of course, there is this other factor of demand supply. So if, let's say, central banks are buying more gold, then prices tend to move higher. So morning, Noniza Jack. Morning, Lucy. So there was a question on the Nasdaq, but we already covered it. So I believe I've answered all the questions. Thank you very much, everyone. So remember, we have a session coming up on Friday in Eldoret. So make sure to book your seat. You can use our social media handles, check the posts we have already shared, and register and purpose to attend. Also, we have a new episode of the Bullish Banter podcast. Very interesting story of a trader who basically traveled from Tanzania all the way to South Africa to learn how to trade. So if you want more details, just check out the Bullish Banter podcast. It's available on FX Pesa YouTube, as well as on all other podcast platforms. So on top of that, if you are new to trading and you're just beginning, check out the Novice to Pro series. It's available on FX Pesa YouTube to help you transition from a complete beginner to a pro level trader. And at the same time, also, if you haven't registered for an account, check the links in the description below and register for a trading account with FX Pesa. So that being said, I would like to thank everyone for taking your time, for joining in, and for participating in the comment section. If you've shared the live video, thank you, and we appreciate you. And I hope to see you on the next session, which will be happening tomorrow at the same time, 11 a.m. So thank you, and enjoy and have a fruitful trading day.